Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. I want to dedicate this episode to Ashton Moore, a previous guest of mine. He is always kind, generous, and creates exceptional opportunities to meet new people. We've had some past guests on our show, including Mike Jalonen of Habit Driven and Param Nasseri of InvestorCom. And today is a special episode in my series on AI. And today's guest is Eric Bourget, founder and CEO of Half Serious. Today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that is 99.9% accurate. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, I'm excited to introduce Eric Bourget. He's the founder and CEO of Half Serious, a technical and creative agency that specializes in digital transformations for mid-sized companies. His firm focuses on helping businesses with 200 to 2,000 employees navigate the complex landscape of digital evolution. With a background in the video game industry, Eric brings a unique blend of creativity and technical insight to his work at Half Serious. At Half Serious, Eric leads a team that excels in merging technical know-how with creative strategies to engage and inspire their clients and their teams. He often speaks on topics such as the role of design in business, fostering passion in the workplace, leading transformative change, and the impact of AI, as well as the power of creativity and problem solving. Eric, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Hey, Rich. Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you. And for those who haven't heard this podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. So, Eric, let's understand your business a little better. What does your company help people do?
All right. So really simply, Half Serious, and I usually have to explain the name a little bit. So Half Serious comes from my background in video games. I wanted to have something that was going to be focused on technology, but with a really strong desire to get people to adopt it and to enjoy using technology. So it's always been part of the DNA. Today, what Half Serious does is we help, like you said, mid-sized companies move to a more digital way of serving their customers or operating. And I think the most interesting way of describing the company is to say that we're a hybrid between a technology firm and a communications agency, because as we developed our skills and went through project, we figured out that developing the right technology, we're great at that. We've never dropped the ball on that. The problem a lot of times is just getting people to adopt it, whether that's customers, any stakeholders, or really employees. Like, how do you evolve the digital landscape with a client in a way that just makes all the employees feel like they've been involved in this and proactively turn potential detractors into promoters of this change.
So I'm going to go back to your name, Half Serious, because I do actually love this company name. And it's always made me think of improv comedy. And before we started this conversation, you were telling me that you are giving out weekly messages to your team and you're working hard to make them fun and engaging. How do you do it?
So first of all, create a space. Like, this room here is made for that. And so one of the first things that I did is remove all the friction for myself, right? We used to be in a situation where when I wanted to do this, I needed to set up my stand and then lights and stuff like that. And now that there's a dedicated room and I can just show up and I have someone that handles, shooting it and then packaging it and then sending it, by removing all friction, I just made sure that I'm going to do it every single time. And then at first I was thinking, these are going to be 2-minute clips. I'm going to, get right down to the information that I'm trying, or the message I'm trying to send employees. And by trying different things, I figured out that this was really like a mini podcast. We have about, let's say, 60, 65 employees. We have a hybrid model. A lot of people never come into the office. So how do you create this sort of sense of a shared experience in this company when people don't necessarily meet each other in the hall? So I'm going to talk about things happening in different projects and where we're going but I make it very down to earth, and I try to make it funny. We've jokes. We do dad jokes sometimes. It's like I was uneasy about that at first because I'm like, I'm taking 20 minutes out of your day. Shouldn't I be more focused on the information? But really, the data and the feedback just says, it's a mini podcast. It comes out every Friday at 9 o'clock. It's on Loom. We push it on Slack. Everyone watches it and then comments below it. And it's like, it's an internal podcast, basically.
No, that's awesome. I don't know a lot of technologists who are thinking this way,
Mm.
which is why I wanted to bring it up, because if your company is, oh, we build tech, and there's lots of companies that build tech, but your focus is on how to make the tech, make sense to somebody, and how do you get adoption, and how do you
Right.
communicate that? And I think this example of what you're doing with your own team is a good way to look at it. So what are you thinking about doing with your customers to help them get the adoption with their products that you're working with them on?
Right. So one of the things that we really invested in was a strong UX research team. So the first
Mm.
things we're going to do is we're going to go out in the field. We have a mining company, and when we put the team on planes, and we went to the mining site and stuff like that. And you get to talk to a lot of people. And what most companies are going to do when you're designing custom software is you're going to use this sort of empathy-driven methodology. Call it design thinking. I don't want to get caught up in terms, but it's like an empathy-driven way of figuring out where the opportunities and the challenges and the pains are. In a classic way, what you would do is you would take this information and you would leverage it to design the best solution possible. But there's really two ways to use this empathy-based data. Is one of them obviously to develop the best platform possible, the best solution possible. The other is to develop the best communications plan possible. So think of this: you're working as a truck driver in a mine. You get this
Mhm.
guy from the big city that comes in and he asks you a bunch of questions about what you're working on and blah, blah, blah. And then he disappears. And a year and a half later, there's a new platform that comes out and you're being told that that's what you're going to do. Like, how much are you going to want to, or how much are you going to feel that you've been part of this? Not very much. So
Yeah.
our approach to this is to say, as soon as we have a single conversation with someone, they're part of our audience that we're catering to. And so we're going to make sure that month after month, they're getting updates on what's going on so that they feel like this conversation was actually them uh, coming into this tribe that's the digital transformation tribe. And now they're not part of this movement. And so our hope is that if we do it well, most of the people that we've touched, that we've created a relationship with, when we roll things out, they're going to be our allies.
Yeah.
And if we don't do anything, they're not going to be passive. They're most likely going to be actively resisting the change, right?
That's the worst.
Unless you turn them into promoters, they will probably be detractors. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the most interesting part of the approach, is to say, look, digital transformation is about business transformation, and business transformation is about people and getting everyone aligned on what we're trying to do, and getting them, making them feel like they haven't been left at the station when the train took off. Everyone's on that train. We're all part of this together. And it's easy to say, but how do you operationalize this thing so that people actually, we're managing how people are feeling about what's going on?
We had a customer, a very, very long-standing customer of ours, spent 18 months implementing our product in a brand new way. And they said, we're really excited. We're going into user acceptance testing. And they got into that testing, and within 2 weeks, they shut down the project. 18
Yeah.
months of work down the drain because
Mhm.
the users are like, we can't use this. It completely violates our policies, our compliance rules, et cetera. And so
Yeah.
that need to involve people and engage them throughout the process of building the tech, man, you're onto it. That is so
But
important.
it came from failures, as
Yeah.
with most learnings. And I think one of the cases that I could actually talk about was we created a platform for recruiters in the retail space. And the problem that they had is that you're receiving a bunch of resumes of 16-year-olds that just went into Word and put in, they don't have any experience. And so you're creating all this pipeline, this talent pipeline that was made for something else, and you're trying to force fit it into this thing called retail and restoration. And so we created this new platform where these people, with an app, they could put in what we called powers and passion. It was a little gamified, but you created a profile, and then we have a profile for the job opportunities, and we have a software that matches these things. And then we give to the recruiter a sorted list of candidates. And so we're like, this is obviously a better solution compared to receiving a bunch of crappy PDFs. The VP of HR, super excited, signs the check. We roll it out. And in the end, it completely failed because we never involved the recruiter. And to the recruiter, they actually don't talk to most of those people. They're not managing, candidates. They're managing PDFs, resumes in
Oh,
PDF form.
funny.
And so,
Wow.
if you remove the PDF, they're completely lost. We've completely changed their day to day. Never involved them. So
Yeah.
technology works perfectly. Really cool algorithm. Plans on improving that with AI. A bunch of stuff. The candidates love it. The VP loves it. But we didn't create allies of the people that are actually going to be using the software, and therefore we just fell on our face.
Oh man. Yeah, that is so important to keep people involved, informed, and giving checkpoints along the way as well. So you hear
Yeah.
their feedback periodically. Let's talk more in depth about AI. I mean, companies come to you for technology projects. How many are coming to you now to say, I need something that is AI built, AI driven, whatever?
Most people will come to us with a question, which is, considering my industry, is AI going to disrupt me, or do I have an opportunity to disrupt my market using AI? And it's funny because AI just made technology interesting to a lot of players that were not traditionally interested in using technology for what they were doing. For instance, a communications company. So
Hmm.
company comes to us and they say, we want to be able to use ChatGPT, but our clients forbid us from doing that because they're afraid that it's going to be used as learning data for OpenAI, which it absolutely will. And so they can't use it. But it's very easy for us to create a platform that leverages OpenAI, but that protects the data. That's basic. And usually the question is going to be, well, are you just trying to build a tool so that you can use OpenAI? That's not really interesting. What is it that you would love to change in your industry that AI could completely change? So it's an interesting merger of people that know technology but are not an expert in your industry, and you're an expert in your industry, but your knowledge or what you understand about AI is very naive and it's
Hmm.
very shallow and it's based on a bunch of stuff that you've heard. And so that initial merge of these two things is very interesting.
It
I'll
is.
give you. Oh,
Go
sorry. I
ahead.
was going to give
No,
you
go
an
ahead.
example. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Please.
uh, so one of our clients has a situation where they need to respond to about 400 RFPs every single month,
Oof.
and so they have an army of people that are doing it. No one loves to fill out an RFP, so it tends to go to the lowest people in your company, like the interns, whatever. Well, the interns, they don't really know anything about your company, so you're giving them a bunch of paperwork to understand. So it's this mess of clerical work, drudging, painful, and so they're like, how could we use AI to do this? And so what we ended up doing, just to make the story short, we created an application that utilizes, I don't want to get too technical, but it's the basic principle is called RAG. So it's a retrieval augmented generation. So you're grabbing information somewhere else. You're using that as inference data, and you're telling this AI stack, hey, you need to become a master of all this information. So regulatory information, all that stuff, so that I could take a question from an RFP, just put it in here, and it says, what is our policy in case of someone quits and we want to prevent them to have access to our data? That information is in one of the 400 documents that sits in there. Well, the AI tool is going to find that in a fraction of a second, compose a really cool message that responds that the user can just paste it back. And so we've taken a process that takes about 6 weeks and we reduced it to about 6 hours because
Nice.
that's just what AI does really well.
Man,
And then, oh,
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. Then the other thing that's interesting is it always leads to the next level. So an example is one of the questions is, hey, what is your policy for inclusion from the LGBTQ community? They don't have a policy for that. And so instead of replying, I don't know, it's very easy for you to say, well, would you like us to generate one?
Yeah.
Because,
Right.
there's a central bank of other stuff. And so you can then work with that stack to, create the missing policy. You get it approved, you put it back in your stack, and now you can answer. And so look, there's a saying that says the only way to win in business is to be in business. Well, the only way to win in AI is to be in AI. You need to put things together. You need to vibe with it, figure out what's going on, and then you'll get a bunch of new ideas. But you just need to get started, do something.
No, that's the most important point, I think. Just dive in. I mean, yes, be careful about what kind of mistakes you can make, like anything, right? You don't want to delete your C drive on your computer when you're learning computers for the first time.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think this is really interesting. You just given me this idea because I really don't like RFPs. And the
No
customers
one
that
does.
do it, they often don't give you enough context to understand what it is they're trying to solve. It's almost like they're just saying, give us everything about your company and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I feel like I want to take the RFPs we've answered really, really diligently, throw it into a GPT model and make it answer more RFPs for us in the future. We don't do 400. I mean, I've never done 400 in my life, but
But what you could do is you could also tell, OpenAI, before you answer any of those questions, go, browse all the information from the company and
yeah,
try to optimize the answers so that they fit with the language that this company is using.
right.
The
No,
companies
that's
love
so
to hear
great.
their own words back. So it's like,
That's
make sure
even
you use
smarter.
their words.
That's
Yeah.
even smarter, man. Yeah, one of the things I'm noticing in what you talk about here is you're not talking about AI for AI's sake. You're not talking about it as enamored with tech. You're talking about it from the business standpoint.
Right.
When you're thinking about it, you're thinking about how to solve a business problem. So you
Correct.
mentioned, large language model GPT approaches. Is that the number one thing people are asking about, or is that the
Um,
one way to solve problems for people that they're bringing
right.
business problems to you with?
Yeah. Half Serious is in the business of productization of technology. Right. So that's the number one thing. OpenAI is the 800-pound gorilla, and it's a general LLM. It does
Hmm.
a lot of stuff, but we do use other models. So I'll give you just to. I'm trying not to get too technical, but there's whenever you're saying, "Hey, I'm gonna query. I need to ask you a question, and the answer resides in this database, and then I want you to answer." It's almost like think about it like talking to your hard drive.
Hmm.
You're talking to this big database. The database contains all the information that I need to respond to the RFP. Well, when I'm asking the question, I'm using natural language. What is our policy for whatever?
Yeah.
There's it doesn't go directly to OpenAI. It first goes to an LLM. That's a separate technology. That's a model that's optimized to convert natural language to an SQL query,
Okay.
right? And so that one, it's a much smaller model. It just creates an SQL query. It asks the database answers back in the way that databases do. You feed that to OpenAI so that it could package it so it could generate natural language that then you can use. So you're combining different models together in order to create this product. So it's not a lot of people, to your point, will think that we're basically just wrapping OpenAI. It's a lot more sophisticated than that.
Yeah. And there are other techs, like you said. I mean, there's the Google has theirs, but AWS has it too, right? So which one of these, of all these open GPT models or large language models, which one do you think is the easiest to secure for a client?
Oh, I mean, OpenAI is obviously the best choice right now, and they're sort of on this path of they're you remember a couple of years ago, you would have a Google Drive account.
Hmm.
And then you would get an email that says, "Hey, your previous account was 25 gigs for $5 a month. Your plan has been updated. It's now 100 gigs and it's going to cost you $2 a month." And that seems to be like when they did their latest upgrade, they cut the price by four. So they cannot ignore it. But you
Hmm.
can't do everything around OpenAI as well. There's going to be a bunch of different things. Some of our clients are saying, "Hey, if I'm trying to get this form filled or understood by someone who's vision impaired, we're not going to use OpenAI to do that. There's other models that are going to be, text to speech, or even puts a personality on the screen, or like a live person that talks to you. There's a bunch of different, like, packaging all these, I'm going to call them agents, packaging all these agents together, um, in order to productize it, I think is the most interesting thing. If you want to browse all these things, I suggest you go to there's a site called uh, Hugging Face. I don't know if
Okay,
you're
I've heard of
aware.
it. I haven't been there,
Hugging
but I've heard
Face
of it.
is a big repository of different models where you could
Hmm.
do a bunch of stuff with it. So I think that for the foreseeable future, OpenAI is probably going to be the backbone of everything that we build, but we don't access it directly. We're AWS partners, and AWS has this platform that's called Bedrock that you could use to access these things. So that later on, if we decide, you know what, it's not OpenAI, we're gonna eject it and plug something else, then we can do it. So I think
Nice.
if you're building AI right now or productizing AI right now, there's probably two things that you want to keep in mind. You build an architecture that allows you to be flexible because it's a very, very dynamic field. You want to be able to swap things around without breaking anything, and in order to be able to take advantage of it, it's it's a technical debt as a constant. And so you need to be really, really smart about the way that you're packaging these things so that there's really good abstraction layers so that you can unplug and plug things. I'm simplifying, but you understand what I'm saying. And then the other thing is build a bigger team from the start. You need to have at least 5 people on your team. You're going to have at least 2 people that are just going to be monitoring technologies, testing it.
Hmm.
And then you're going to have a frontline team that's going to productize it. And the reason it needs to be somewhat bigger is you're going to lose 50% of these people every year because
Sure.
the competition for that talent is just insane. So if you have one person who's a full stack who, plugs things into OpenAI, you'll get somewhere. You'll probably lose that person in the next year. So, what are you going to do? So
Yeah,
that's
I think that's one of the challenges with these evolving new innovative technologies. There's a lack of people who have the skill. So when they develop the skill, it's in demand, they get paid more. That's definitely one of the challenges. But I want to go back to something else because, you know, we've been talking about AI as technologists for 5, 10, 15 years. I know some people way, way, way longer. I met somebody who was working on AI in 1992. But those different models were machine learning. It was, like text to speech and speech to text, all those things. And I think that OpenAI is kind of like the Henry Ford of our day. They made
Mhm.
it so obvious, they made it so easy to consume and work with that everybody who's getting into AI now is thinking that's what it is, but it's not. It's a whole bunch of different models, like you talked about, some of which approach large language, some of them approach vision, imagery. There's so many different pieces to the puzzle. It also makes it daunting, which is why people, I think, come talk to you. How do we figure
Yeah,
this out?
yeah, exactly. I think it's weird because OpenAI, what they also did is, like, you remember QR codes came out a
Oh
long
yeah,
time ago, but
sure.
they were
I had
very unpopular. They disappeared for a while, and
hmm
we had a resurgence, and now they're somewhat popular. Right? Pandemic. I don't want to say that word again. I just don't want to jinx anything. But somehow they're popular. And what OpenAI did is they've created things in people's minds, and they created desire for this because, like you said, they made it very accessible. The One of the issues is um no one really understands what it is, and everyone's understanding of it is extremely naive. And they'll in the same conversation they'll tell you something, and my answer is going to be, well, that sounds like one guy, 2 weeks, you can get it done. Oh, I have this other idea, and I'm like, 2 PhDs, 5 years. So
yeah, right.
they don't really understand, where the limits are. So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's one of my favorite things with technology when people who don't build technology come to you with an idea. Oh, Rich, I got this great idea. It's just a simple little app. I'm like, that's minimum 6 figures, probably 12 months of work. They're like, no, but it's really simple. Just do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. Um,
Well, a friend of mine was using this analogy, saying like, "Hey, I need an app." Well, okay, what does that app do? It takes a picture of a bird and it uploads it to the cloud. I was, oh, easy. 3 weeks of work, one guy. Oh, and also I needed to classify its exact genome and describe. Okay, 2 PhDs,
Yeah,
4 years. You know, that's going to be that type of thing. So sometimes it just sounds like, well, this little extra thing, but you're asking for something that's completely different.
So, Eric, I've asked a lot of people on this podcast who are more business leaders and less technologists if they think AI is going to change, people's jobs, if it's going to replace people's jobs, is there a threat, that kind of thing. You're working with tech all the time and working across lots of industries and customer types. So you're seeing a totally different perspective. So what do you think AI is actually doing to impact people's work lives? Is it going to replace jobs? Is it going to replace full technologies out there?
I think that it will replace jobs, and I think it already has. It is probably a good thing in this environment because we don't have enough people for the jobs that we have. And for right now, at least, the jobs that it's replacing, it's usually jobs that people just don't really want to do, that are very sort of drudging. If I had to, like, a crystal ball, or I had to make a prediction, I think that at some point we are going to have departments of people and departments of AI.
Mm,
And let me explain that.
okay.
There's a platform that you might want to play with called AutoGen. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, I don't know.
And AutoGen is basically, you could create an agent and you could get that agent to work with another one.
Oh, I've seen this. Yes.
Yeah. And so I have a friend of mine in Toronto. He's actually built a website that updates itself. And the way that he's done it is he has created a couple of different agents. The first agent is an agent that browses the internet. And I think that agent is interested in Tesla and the Toronto real estate, right? And so it just grabs what's going on and it lists them out. And then it provides it to another agent that's a writer. And the writer will look at these topics and write articles, and then they'll hand it over to an editor, and the editor will make comments because it's been optimized to understand the tone of the article that it's looking for. They'll actually give feedback to the writer, and you can observe these AIs talk to each other because they talk to each other in like a chat format in a chat room that you can observe. So you can see them talking to each other. And so, back and forth, back and forth. And then there's probably an SEO agent that says, hey, make sure you use these words because they track better. And then at the end of the pipeline, there's an agent whose optimization is to put it on the website. So in the end, what do you have? You have a website that updates itself based on a department, if you will, of AI agents that are just collaborating with each other. I'm fascinated with this concept. In fact, if my company got sold today and I wanted to start something else, I would start a company that helps other companies build AI departments. I would call it the departments.
Wow.
Cool.
What a fascinating view of this. You're right. I have been so focused on AI augmenting skill sets. And so, like a lot of our customers, they're looking at our new product Form Extract to eliminate having to look at forms and hand type the data that came in on a completed form. What I'm finding across the board is that these are high value, high paid people. It's not their full-time job to do data entry. It's part of the job, and it's the worst part of their job. So we're getting them out of that task, and we're not replacing the person. We're giving them better work to do.
I think what you're describing is we are short-sighted sometimes in the way that we think of AI as an assistant, and we might be better served by thinking of AI as labor.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that much about your business, but you might say, this form is incomplete, figure it out. And if that AI needs to send an email to someone because it's missing information, then it does it. Like, it gets all the information, it fills the form, and maybe it sends the form to another AI who's an auditor. And that other AI is like, hey, this thing doesn't make sense or whatever. And so you're getting the AI to actually do the work instead of just assisting the person that does the work.
Yeah, I mean, applying AI to the workflow in business is going to be so powerful over time.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. Man, Eric, I want to keep talking to you, but we got to wrap this up. So before I ask you my last question, what is the best way for people to find and connect with you?
Probably send me an email. I would say eric@halfserious.com is the best way. I don't want to send people to my website because it's outdated, but we'll figure that out. It's
Get
always
an AI to
the
do that for you.
I need to. Yeah, for sure I need to. It's always this thing because the thing that I struggle with sometimes is AI does things well, but never great. And some things need to be done great, and
Mm-hmm.
greatness comes from human ingenuity. And I do not think that we'll ever replace that, not in my lifetime. And I
I
believe
agree.
that AI's role is to free us from the burden of drudgery so that we can apply our creativity and human ingenuity to things that deserve it.
Hear, hear, man. Cheers to that. That's exactly what I want to see. All right, so here comes my last question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style or how you approach your role today?
Um, I think I'm going to go to another topic probably, but my biggest, I want to say, not issue, challenge really is running the business as someone who's calm. Like I'm I want to be more thoughtful. I want to be more prepared when I show up for a conversation. I want to be more present in the conversations that I have. And so I'm simplifying the organization. I'm trying to master myself. I'm looking at a lot of books that and content that you know, 10 years ago me would have just rolled his eyes of like meditation and warrior stage and all that stuff to just like I want, now that I have a lot more means and a bigger company and a tighter mission, I want to be able to do this for a long time and have but to do it in a way that where my mind is at ease, as opposed to just being on the gun all the time, right? And so I want to give a shout out to Marie-Josée, who's in my forum. I'm part of EO, as you know, and so she's in my forum, and she's always struck me as someone that's been doing this for a long time, and she always looks like she's on top of everything that she's doing, but she always also has time for you and is calm. And I've always been very impressed with the ability to do great things, but to feel like it just makes it look easy. And I'm sure it's not easy, but she just seems like she's very zen about everything that she's doing.
I love this topic. So can I share a technique that I use with you?
Please.
I have a very simple belief I've applied throughout my life, and that is if somebody else is stressed out about something, worried about it, it's their job to worry about it. I won't be.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how many times in my company we couldn't pay payroll. And that's not a problem today, but so many times. And my COO had to manage that problem. Since he was stressed out about it, I wasn't.
Oh
And it
yeah.
just kept me so much more calm about the things that were going on because my product guy is stressed, my engineer is stressed, my customer service team is stressed. I don't have to be stressed about those things that they're worried about and
Yeah.
working on.
Interesting. Yeah, I have a couple of, I'm trying to work on like what are my principles or playbook or recipe. And one of the things I'm really interested in these days is well, I'm reading right now Untethered Souls,
Hmm.
which is really interesting, but you have to sort of be ready for it. And one of the things that I keep on thinking about is in the end, what I'm trying to manage is I'm trying to focus my attention, and I'm trying to have clarity on my intention. And so every moment where I feel like this is too much, I'm always like, okay, what is my intention in this moment, and how do I manage my attention? And so if my intention is to, I don't know, increase my network, and my attention is being distracted by payroll or whatever, I'm like, how do I solve that to
Mhm.
get back to this balance? I'm not saying that I figured it out, but that's my latest version.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, we got to wrap this up. So I want to
Okay.
give a huge thank you to Eric Bourget, CEO of Half Serious, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Eric's website at halfserious.com.
Or
And don't
don't.
forget, what?
Or don't.
Or
Like I
don't.
said, the
Well, yeah.
website.
No, no, go check it out because he's gonna make it better. Halfserious.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easy. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Thank you so much for joining me today, Eric.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.